Great, and then we'll get started. So I'm going to start just with my little spiel about MxG. I know a lot of you have heard it before, but for any newcomers, MxG is a statewide network of organizations and individuals that support entrepreneurs and innovators to scale in Maine and beyond. We believe that a vibrant, inclusive innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem will result in a more abundant, equitable, and sustainable economy and make Maine a great place to live, work, and play. We work together to share expertise, seek best practices, and to address system gaps. We promote the successes of Maine startups and entrepreneur support organizations and collaborate to attract talent and inspire innovation. So I think to start, just for anybody who's either new to MxG or hasn't been here in a year or so, just a very quick introduction. It can just be your name, what role you have, what organization you're with, and then there'll be more opportunities at the end of the meeting to share more about your organization and any announcements. And you can just raise your hand or just kind of pop out. And I know we have some folks who are going to be presenting later. You're also welcome to just do a very quick intro, and you can mention that you'll be presenting later. So who wants to kick us off for the newbies?
I'll jump in. Hey folks, I'm Chuck Leinbach with a new firm. A friend and I are starting in Maine called Down East Growth. We're a consulting firm that focuses on helping companies with their go-to-market work. So getting customers and marketing and selling to them.
Great, thanks, Chuck. And welcome. Miles, go ahead.
Hey folks, it's been a while since I've joined. So just in case you don't know about the Maine Broadband Coalition, we are a nonprofit coalition of various organizations, including a number that are on this call, trying to bring statewide world-class internet to Maine. And part of the reason I'm joining is to hear if there are businesses that are benefiting from having fiber optic internet installed in the last couple of years, or are really suffering because their internet does not meet the needs of their business. I want to tell that story so we can keep the momentum going. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Miles. Susan.
Hey, hi. I'm grabbing the mic just for a minute just to ensure that everyone on this call is aware that there's a gathering this next Thursday. It's the second annual gathering with Startup Maine and also the Canadian Consulate team out of Boston. It'll be a great gathering. It's at the Portland Art Gallery in Portland. Sorry that it's Portland for the rest of Maine, but come on down. And you can certainly reach out to me for any details. It's also on the Startup Maine website. We've got over 100 people coming. We're serving Maine oysters, Canadian wines, and we're going to talk about everything from aquaculture to the future of forest industry to how rural communities thrive, how we deal with climate change, coastal communities, whatever. It's going to be a great networking opportunity. And I just wanted to make sure. I see many people here have already RSVP'd, but you're all very welcome to come and join in on the conversation. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Susan. Rebecca.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Jones. I'm the new Senior Program Manager for Upstart Maine. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Anybody else? Kayvon and David, I know you guys are going to be presenting. Maybe you can just give a very, very quick introduction just now, and then we'll save most of it for the presentation.
Sure. I can go first. Hi, I'm David Say. I'm co-founder and CEO of Chargely, one of the startups here at the Roux Founder Residency program. I'll go through what we're doing and what we're building, but essentially it's ways for EV charging. So.
Great, thanks, David.
Hi, I'm Kayvon Touran. It's really nice to meet all of you. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zal.ai. We're helping employers offer career pathing to their employees. And like David said, I'm another founder in the residency program at the Roux. And yeah, looking forward to share more.
Great, thanks. Anybody else who is either new or hasn't been here in a long time who wants to do a quick introduction?
I'll say hello. My name is Stella Hernandez. I don't have my camera on because I'm essentially on a construction site, and I'll spare you the background. I am the relatively new director of the Business Hub at the Immigrant Welcome Center.
Yeah, welcome, Stella.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, great. So I'm going to just kick us off by just a quick update on the MTI side of thing. We only have one announcement today, which is just to flag up that MTI is sponsoring the Clean Tech Open again in partnership with E2 Tech. I know a lot of you are familiar with it, but the Clean Tech Open, it's the oldest and largest accelerator for clean tech startups. It's a national program. It's kind of like a mini MBA with expert mentoring, lots of professional connections, opportunities to compete for cash prizes, and access to various offers of goods and services. The Clean Tech Open Northeast, which is the version that'll be here in Maine, is accepting applications from February to April 14th. The cohort will be selected in May, and the accelerator will run from May through October, with core programming June to August. They are seeking early stage clean tech startups with solutions to improve the environment. And the other thing I'll just mention about that is part of the recruitment for the 2024 cohort. There will be an event in Portland on February 29th, and a number of alumni of the Clean Tech Open who have won or participated in the past will be speaking. So I'll post some more information in the notes document that everybody will get after this, but just wanted to put that on folks' radar. And Bobby, I saw you raise your hand. Is that did you want to make something?
Yes, please. It's related to that announcement. I want you a little name dropping relative to the Clean Tech Open. I learned about it through Marty Groman and became a judge in that program. Was fortunate to be at the semifinals this past fall. Ran into Cindy Talbot there. Of the 10 regional semifinalists, 3 were from Maine, and I think Cindy worked with 2 of those 3. So really fun to see the progress of Maine startups in Clean Tech Open, because it was there were none a few years ago, and so that's a wonderful partnership of E2 Tech and MTI to get that going. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Bobby. Joe, did you have something you wanted to mention as well?
Yeah, this is Joe Miliato, Director of Portfolio Advancement and MTI, Tom's colleague. And just a quick one that maybe is relevant to MTI is MTI's board. As you'll know, if you see and read the public minutes, is very interested in kicking off strategic planning. And Tom and I are following that. The plan and who and how and what will be involved is still developing, but just wanted to share that one of the things that we try to make sure we bubble up are some of those ideas that came out of MxG work groups and what was it, like 1,000 hours of time from a couple years ago. So just keep that on your radar and for your organizations to, if you're going to be undertaking strategic planning, feel free to reach out to the MTI president. Thanks. Brian Whitney, that would be Brian Whitney.
Great, thanks, Joe. And one thing I neglected to mention, and then Kate, I'll let you go, is MTI is committed to covering the participation fee, which is around $2,000 for up to 5 Maine startups. So if you're interested, feel free to shoot me a message. Happy to put you in touch with the relevant folks over at MTI. Kate, go ahead.
Thanks. Just super quick, I want to follow up on what Bobby said. If you want to be inspired by some young entrepreneurial possible people, Maine Invention Convention is looking for judges. I threw it in the Google Doc. There's all sorts of information in there. As for middle school students in Maine, the state finals happen during the Maine Science Festival in March. I'm happy to answer any questions people might have.
Great, thanks, Kate. Do you want to just plop your email address in the chat as well, in case folks have questions? Cool, thanks. So that's all from MTI. So from here, we're going to go over to DECD, and I think it'll be Shae presenting.
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Shae McGhee. I work in the Office of Business Development. Just a couple of things I want to highlight today. The first is that the Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan co-working grant is open for applications. This is different than the standing co-working development fund. So there are 2 programs right now. The development fund is not open, but this Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan is. So this program, there's 2 groups of applicants. It's 4 co-working spaces that have been impacted by the pandemic. So one group is for existing co-working spaces that suffered losses. And then the second group is for either new spaces or expansion of existing spaces. I linked that in the notes, the information there, so you can take a look if that pertains to you or anybody you know. I also want to tag with the devastating storms that we just consistently have been hit with. Want to flag the Maine Resource Flood and Assistance Hub. So you can go there for information on what is available right now. It is still surveying the damage. So there are spots for individuals and businesses to submit the damages that they have occurred. And so that's not submitting for assistance, but that does help the state prepare their report, understand the damages, and plan from there, and hopefully make a request of FEMA and the president. If you checked the news, you'll see that the governor has requested the emergency declaration for the storm in December. Each of these storms are different and treated differently, so it's a slow process. There's the update there. Tagging in MxG, they had reached out about looking for businesses to participate in Explore Tech. So if you're working with any businesses that could benefit from an intense training on exporting, I would encourage you to connect them with MxG. They are looking to kind of close their application period next week, so that one is a bit of a push. And then to highlight again, if you haven't heard about it, Maine's Career Exploration Program is connecting Maine youth with businesses. The program manager there is Karina. She is eager to get as many businesses into this program as possible. At this point, I think that they have run through at least 1,000 more students into these meaningful paid work experiences. So they're like bite-sized internships that allow students to get exposed to different things, different businesses in Maine. So it's a very awesome program. So if you or any businesses that you're working with are interested, I put the link to and contact information for Kay in the notes as well. And I can re-put these in the chat if that's helpful. But that almost wraps it up. Ellen Mailing wanted me to remind folks, if you received a note from her, she is pulling a survey together. It's anonymous. It's about the marketing needs of businesses in the state. So this information is going to inform how we allocate the remaining marketing funds in the domestic trade program. So it's a pretty big voice for businesses, and can really shape what will be available to them. So that's an important piece. I know SBDC has that survey. If you'd like it, please reach out to either myself or Ellen, and we can get you connected. But that sums it up for me.
Great. Thanks so much, Shae.
You're welcome.
And I put the link to the notes document in the chat for anybody who hasn't had a chance to take a look at it. If you have any announcements that you want to put in there, feel free. I'll send it around after this meeting. Selena is very kindly taking notes as folks talk, but if you're one of the speakers and you want to just go and make sure she captured all the relevant points afterwards, that's also helpful. Great. So from there, we're going to go to Santi, who's going to present on the Roux Institute Founder Residency. Santi, you'll have 5 minutes. I'm going to put a timer up. And then, if you go a little over, that's fine, but roughly 5 minutes. And then there'll be 5 minutes of Q&A afterwards.
Awesome.
And you should be able to go ahead and present.
All right. Can you guys see the
Yes.
screen? Yep. Great. So for those of you who I have not met, I am Santiago Zindel. I am the director of the Roux Institute Founder Residency. And yeah, today I wanted to just tell you all a little bit about the work that we're doing in the residency. If you do not know that much about the Roux Institute, quick little overview. The Roux Institute is a remote campus of Northeastern University, and we are located here in Portland, Maine. And we have 3 pillars: talent development through our graduate programs. We have research. So we have a lot of research faculty doing research here at the university, mainly in artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, and health and life sciences. And then we have entrepreneurship. So the founder residency falls within this entrepreneurship scope, and it is a year-long program to help early stage tech entrepreneurs that are building highly scalable businesses. So to go a little bit deeper into the program itself, we have a few different entrepreneurship programs. The Founder Residency is the flagship program, the first program that we started running from the Roux Institute. It is a social impact program specifically designed to help underrepresented founders. That includes women, people of color, LGBTQ+, and other historically marginalized people. And the goal here is to help increase the equity and diversity of the startup ecosystem here in Maine. If you are not aware, the startup world is highly inequitable across the US. Less than 5% of venture capital funding last year went to companies that had any founders that identified as women, Black, Latino, or LGBTQ+. So we're trying to improve that and have that be more equitable here in Maine. So the program, like I said, is specifically for highly scalable tech startups. And then aside from that, they have to have at least one founder that identifies into one of these categories. The program itself is 12 months long. It's a full year co-location here at the Roux Institute. So it does require, even though it is 100% free to the startups, they don't have to give up any equity, they don't have to pay anything. It does require them to move to Maine and work out of the Roux Institute. So they get free access to our space and they get to work from the space itself. They also get access to an intensive curriculum. So the first 3 months of the program are, we meet almost daily for workshops, for different types of talks. We have a mentorship aspect to the program where you get paired with mentors as a startup. You get over $300,000 in credits and other perks from our partners. And each startup gets $25,000 in a non-dilutive grant. During the curriculum, the 3-month curriculum, we have various different workshops all about building and growing a startup. We have one-on-ones with the program team, office hours from different partners and mentors. We have various other founders come in and tell their stories, whether it's a success story or if not successful story. And then we have a lot of different cohort events. We have socials, we have family meals, we have different networking events. And we collaborate with other organizations across Maine for those networking events as well, like Startup Maine and whatnot. This is a quick view of the timeline for last year and this year. So we currently have a cohort. You're going to hear from two of the cohort members later today. But that program started in September. We did our 3-month intensive from September through December, and now have started the 9 months of just working in residency from this space. We are going to have the Venture Showcase on February 29th, and I will go into that in a second. Then our applications for the 2024 program are going to open up on March 1st, and that program is going to start in September 2024. So kind of pulling out a couple important dates that you all should be aware of / potentially RSVP if you're interested in learning more. That the Venture Showcase for this year, the 2023 cohort, it's going to happen on February 29th, which happens to be, I think, the same date as that Clean Tech Open event, but that seems to be in the evening. This is from 1 to 6. So from 2 to 3, we have the pitches. You're going to hear from all of the 10 startups that have participated in the program this year. And then from 4 to 6, it's a networking reception for you to just get to know them and support them and figure out how you can help them. And we have this showcase right in the middle of the program so that the cohort can reconnect with the community and continue. They're still going to be here 6 months after this showcase. So we want to connect them with the folks here and figure out how the community can be helpful towards them. And then the day after, on March 1st, we're going to open up the applications for the 2024 program. So please send any startups our way for the September 2024 start. And that is it.
Great, thanks so much. Do you want to stop sharing screen? It just makes it a little easier to see who might have their hands raised. Great. Any questions for Santi? And maybe while folks are thinking, I'll kick us off. So you mentioned that the program's intended to work with groups that have historically been underserved or marginalized, and also highly scalable. Are there any other kind of considerations that folks should take into account when referring businesses your way in terms of kind of maybe the stage that they should be at or anything of that nature?
Yeah, so we're looking post ideation. We need, we're looking for businesses that already have some sort of product. It doesn't have to be out to market yet. It could be a late stage prototype. Or it could be early, in market already and with some early customers, but it has to be post ideation. So we won't really take folks that are just like thinking about potentially starting something, right? And then it has to be, it doesn't have to, but generally we like earlier companies that are still trying to find product market fit, that are still trying to scale. So we usually take companies that have raised less than $500,000. We've taken companies that have raised up to $1 million, but that's starting to get on the later stage.
Great, thank you. Susan, go ahead.
There we are. Hi, Santi. I wonder if you can share with us any experiences to date, just to give us a flavor and inspire us of people to reach out to. I'm just curious, from how far geographically has anyone traveled so far? Is there anything you're noticing about type of business sector? Just anything to get our juices going from your learning so far. And I realize it's very early for this kind of a program here in Maine. Thanks.
Yeah, it's for sure. And you'll hear from 2 startups that are in the program right after this. So that'll also give you a little bit more of an idea, which is great. But this is the 4th cohort we've run. So we have had the first 3 cohorts were only 5 companies. This cohort is now 10 companies, and we'll continue doing 10 companies going forward. But companies have ranged widely. We've had a couple of companies move here from Georgia that have stayed here after they've gone through the program. The current cohort has 5 companies that were already based in Maine. So we definitely want to support companies that are already in Maine, but it also had 5 companies that came from across the world, including the furthest one is a company from Chile that is trying to establish a presence in the US, and this is a way to get them to the US, get them connections here in Maine, and hopefully have them establish their US headquarters in Maine.
Great, thanks. And Joe. Joe, I think you might be muted if you're trying to speak.
Sorry about that. Just a very practical question. I think I can figure most of it out, Sanjay. But I'm always wondering, like, in order to give better fit referrals, and you mentioned, can you talk a little bit about how broad or narrow the people of color part is in this? Thanks. And it's just we're all Browning, right?
Yeah, so the program is meant to help entrepreneurs that are gonna have a hard time finding other types of support. We kind of have, we say women, people of color, LGBTQ+, and then we added that and other historically marginalized people to keep it open to interpretation. In the end, it's really up to the entrepreneurs themselves to self-identify as to whether or not they fit into that category. So, if somebody is coming from a rural place in Maine that doesn't have really much access and support to these sorts of resources, that could count as a historically marginalized individual. It's fairly flexible. We are trying to support entrepreneurs that can't really find support through other means. So I think I will leave it at that.
Santi, I'm so glad I asked, because that's a really great example, especially in Maine, where we find a lot, especially in MTI's world, where we've got to find match. If you want $1 from us, a lot of people don't have historical access to wealth in those areas. So perfect example. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Great. Well, I think we're probably more or less at time, so I'll leave it there. Thanks so much, Santi. And if there's anything you want to drop in the notes document, and feel free to also just put your contact in the chat in case folks have follow-up questions.
Will do. And I also posted that link to RSVP for our February 29th Venture Showcase if anyone's interested.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so now we're on to one of the founder residency current companies. So David, you're up.
Cool. Let me share my screen. And hopefully I'm not giving too much away from the venture showcase. I think there's a lot of time between now and then where I'll work with Santi and we'll make it even better. But yeah, so like I mentioned, I'm David. I'm a co-founder here, actually currently in the Roux. And about a year ago, I went on a EV road trip from here in Maine to Colorado and back. And to sort of prove to myself and others that EVs are here. You can pretty much do anything that you can with a gas car and an EV. But there are a lot of caveats. And it inspired me to sort of look into the problem a little bit more and see if other people had this issue and if we could do something about it. And so that's why we founded Chargely. And we're building trip guidance for EV drivers by EV drivers like myself. And hopefully you guys are aware that EVs are coming. Looking into the numbers more specifically, they're coming fast and strong, I think, 50% growth year over year. It is small today. I think the last numbers in 2022 were 2 million, but it grew by 1 million in theory in 2023. So we're at 3 million. So it's growing pretty quickly. And I think it's only going to pick up more speed with 134 different models hitting the market in 2024. So consumers are having more options. They're getting more affordable. Hertz is unloading a bunch if you hadn't seen, so you can get a really good deal on one right now. And I think there's becoming more acceptable for the mainstream consumer. In fact, 78% of people are saying that they're interested, and in fact, they're going to rent one in the near future to try before they buy, which is a great pathway. I think unfortunately, though, as they go out there, they will find a lot of hazards. There's been a lot of media that's actually fairly warranted around the poor condition of the infrastructure, especially if you're not in a Tesla. 40% of chargers in an area like LA, you can see here, aren't working at any time. And that's pretty egregious when there's the number of actual charging stations available are actually pretty low. So that's going to be an issue. The fact is also it's going to be 10 to 30% more travel time, which can be an issue for a lot of people. What I found personally, though, it's not that big of a deal. Because it allows you to, if you're not in a hurry and just traveling, get a chance to explore the area a little bit more. I find it actually a bit even more tiring if you're traveling for 8 hours at a time without stopping. So it's really not that big of a deal, I think, for a lot of people. But the other problem is that it's extremely fragmented, especially if you're not in a Tesla. There's 30 plus different networks, and each one of them have their own app, and they each have a different process to start a charge. So it's a pretty rough environment out there, right? So what we've built is an app that helps the newbies sort of with the basics of finding a charger, information on how to start a charge, that sort of thing. We've brought in some detailed information on key stops, specifically ones that we think are going to see a lot of traffic for interesting use cases like skiing and charging, going out to Acadia, that sort of thing. There's a lot of things that you're going to want to know before you go and travel. And to give people a chance to save them, write notes, and sort of develop their own habits of traveling and charging. The idea and the thinking is me and the rest of the team being in the Northeast, we know the Northeast really well. We've got a bunch of trip guides that we've recently developed to help guide people on those journeys. And the idea is that we're going to capitalize on that experience as people go out and explore in their EVs. So like I mentioned, we're starting in the Northeast here, I think going across the East Coast. I know a lot of people say West Coast are where all the EVs are at, but we're finding that the East Coast is quickly catching up and that there's a lot more issues because of that. There's a lot more growing pains, a lot more opportunity, we think, to help make the experience better here on the East Coast first, rather than what's out there in California. We've already gotten some good traction from some content that we've put out there, some growth hacking that we're doing on the ground. We're hoping to partner with some rental companies and dealerships in the near future that we're actually actively talking to help get our message out there and acquire more users. So today, we're helping people go further by providing a little bit more information. We're helping the brick and mortar businesses that are supporting the EV charging transition. by connecting them with those EV travelers. I think tomorrow, as we build out our technology and our platform, we'll help people customize and personalize their travels. Same with the brick and mortar businesses, help with attribution. And ultimately, what we want to build is an ecosystem that is helping even developers and operators plan and pick the best locations. So we're not even a year old, but we launched in October. We had a nice peak of 575 monthly active users, and we're refining our product right now. I'll take us through this competition. Here's the team, myself, Carmen, and Nick. Yeah, come find us if you have any questions. So, thanks.
Great. Thanks so much, David. Do you mind stopping sharing just to make it easier?
Sure.
And Susan already has her hand up. Go ahead, Susan.
David, if you're comfortable, I'd love to read over that deck and have more conversation. You didn't get a chance to perhaps finish, so I am just curious, with my Maine-based mind, are you in conversation with the Office of Tourism and the trails that they are working for the EV. They've been working on that area. Maine Public had Pearl, their EV car that was testing out the ability to travel through Maine. I don't know if they do a follow-up piece on Pearl and your learnings. And I'm wondering, are you in touch with Heather Chandler of Green and Healthy Maine? In April, she does an annual expo, including all things EV, but she also has a publication and knows a lot about the EV world. And the last one is there's a lot going on in Quebec regarding EVs. They may actually be ahead of us, but I think there's a lot of focus on 2-nation vacations and this idea, yeah, you're nodding your head. So let's get the EV travel for whether it's skiing, beer, whatever it is, back and forth between the two countries. So I'm throwing a lot out, and I'm doing that intentionally because one thing great about these calls is you throw these ideas out and now everybody goes, oh yeah, that, or that makes me think of this. So if you want to respond to any of those, then speak on up. I'm curious if you are doing much that is Maine centric right now, but otherwise just reach out to me, and I'd love to talk more with you. Thank you.
For sure, I'd love to reach out. I'll say, unfortunately, I think it's no for a lot of them. We have been looking at like the Quebec travel. That is two of the trips that we have right now in terms of curation. And then the main ones are I'd say about 6 of them, and a lot of it's on ski and charge at the moment. So, but I'd love to meet and get more involved, especially with the Office of Tourism. So yeah, would love to follow up and connect with any of those folks. I think that's exactly what we want to do. So perfect. Thank you.
Great. Joe, you're up.
I was just going to ask.
Sorry, Joe Powers.
Joe's probably on the same track. Go ahead, Joe.
You go next, Joe. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, David, for being here. Nice to see you again. Just, I assume, just adding to the list that Susan just mentioned. Have you connected with David Klein over at Wex Ventures?
I have, but I think he just had a kid as well, so he's out on paternity leave. But
okay. But
sure. Yeah, no, I have met him once. Would love to get more involved with him and Wex in particular, because I think what they have already is something it'd be an interesting partnership for sure.
Yeah, you may be right down the fairway of the ventures group in particular. So, but also looking forward to catching up on the Maine Venture Fund front at some point.
Absolutely. Thanks.
So unfortunately, I think we only have time for one question, and Chuck's hand was up first, but Joe, I'll let you guys kind of connect over email or something after. Chuck, go ahead.
Okay, just real quick, David, great presentation. Thanks. I'm a Mach-E owner with 26,000 miles on mine, and got stuck in Mount Desert Island for a weekend once trying to get a charge in the winter, so I can appreciate the issue. I'm curious as to what your revenue model is.
Yeah. At the moment, we're looking to partner up with those businesses. So I think Flight Deck's a great example. They've got EV chargers right outside, and I know Nate talks a lot about the benefits of having those EV chargers and producing traffic for their business. And so potentially partnering up with them and having them sponsored content and pay for attributable traffic to their location from our platform. So that's what we're looking for at the moment. We're open to lots of other ideas. We are looking for product market fit for early stage, like Santi had mentioned. So we are open to any and all ideas. So, yes.
Great. Well, thanks so much for the presentation, David. And maybe if you haven't already, if you can drop your contact in the chat, just so folks have more questions, they can reach out. Awesome. Kayvon, you're up.
Great. Let me throw this on. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, well, again, super excited to be here and thank you for the opportunity, Tom. I'm Kayvon Touran. I'm the CEO of Zal.ai, and we're building a workforce career management platform for employers. I've spent the last decade working in early stage technology startups, most recently working for Noodle in New York, which was founded by John Katzman, who founded the Princeton Review and 2U. And while at Noodle, sort of worked with the leadership team there to scale the company to about $100 million in ARR and 500 employees. Joe Russo is my co-founder. We actually met because he had an MTI-funded startup that was acquired by Noodle. So he's one of the success stories out of MTI and is a lifelong resident of Old Orchard Beach and has spent his entire career building technology in education technology. And our lead advisor, Dr. Koslin, who's the only member of our cap table right now besides Joe and I. And he's one of the foremost experts in the world on human cognition and the science of learning, and has provided us a lot of input in terms of our product. So what are we doing? Well, learning and development is an absolutely humongous market. It's almost baffling when you look at these numbers, and it's something that Joe and I have a lot of experience working in this space at the last startup that we're working at. And one of the things that we noticed in building our own lifelong learning platform while at Noodle was that there are a number of institutions, providers, et cetera, building more content in the industry. But the reality was that content wasn't really what was the scarcity in the marketplace. The scarcity in the marketplace is the context for employers to actually say, hey, this is the learning that you need in order to develop your career at this organization. And that's something that's interesting because obviously with the amount of money that's being spent in the industry around professional development, executives are bought into the value of investing in L&D. So it's pretty clear that the market understands the value of investing in L&D and what the potential for return is there in terms of employee engagement, retention, et cetera. But there's still a gap in terms of providing better context around that learning. And that's something that's clear both as an employee. When I was working in a number of companies, I'd go to my manager and say, hey, I want to become a senior product manager. What do I need to do? And I'd kind of get that blank stare from a manager or some version of, well, you got to show up and work hard. And I think employees today are becoming unsatisfied with that response. And it's also something that's sort of tough for management too. I found myself a year later as a new middle manager getting the same question asked to me by my new recruits. And I kind of gave them the same hand wavy response, but that wasn't satisfactory to me. You know, I'd go to HR and they said, well, it's really up to management to define that. And it kind of set me on a mission to better understand why is it that we don't understand this context better. And it's a combination of qualitative research. I've spoken to hundreds of HR professionals myself in L&D, culture, talent, et cetera. But there's also top-down research to sort of demonstrate what the market is saying is sort of the solution to this problem in terms of how do you really contextualize learning more effectively. And it's clear. It's providing organizations with a better understanding of the skills, career interests, and career paths that are sort of contextualized around learning and development. And what's interesting then is that the market understands, or the professionals in these organizations understand, what is the solution to this problem, right? How do we extract a better return on investment in our learning and development budget? But the problem is that the solution that they know they need to implement is actually really hard to execute. Developing career path within an organization is really, really challenging. It's incredibly time consuming. And so a number of the organizations that we've spoken to that are even like 150 employees told us that it took about a quarter for 2 people spending their entire focus working on this problem to develop all the competencies, skills, behaviors, etc., and then contextualizing their L&D to that. And it's also really complex because even if you're able to create that data, implementing it and maintaining it is really challenging. And the only tools that companies are using right now are a combination of CSVs and PowerPoint. Of course, you can hire a management consulting firm or org design firm, but those are incredibly expensive, like unbelievably expensive, and basically prices out a huge section of the market. Basically, if you're an SMB, you just ignore this problem. And then you just dump a bunch of LinkedIn Learning subscriptions on top of it and call it a day. But that's not really effective. So is that 5 minutes already?
It is, yeah, but you can take another minute or two and we'll just shorten the Q&A.
Cool. Yeah, so I'll talk to you about sort of what our solution is in the marketplace. So first, we built a software platform and are using a combination of natural language processing, generative AI, et cetera, to ingest companies' existing career architecture or org design. And then basically what we can do is spit out a variety of career paths for every single role within the organization. And from there, what we can do is invite employees into this environment and give each one an AI facilitator to help them better understand what their career options are, and then guide them through the potential career paths within the organization, and then track and push those individuals to have conversations with their managers. So trying to support better communication and better, involvement for an employee's career path within the organization itself. And yeah, just in terms of traction, we've been doing this for the last 6 months full time. We just were awarded our second MTI grant. We've got a number of pilot partners that we're contracting with right now, some actually pretty large organizations. And we've got 3 SOWs out right now for some of our first commercialization initiatives and have the beta product live. So thanks again. And I'm sort of eager to hear what you guys think and also connect with as many people and L&D and HR as possible. And I'd also love to be working with more Maine-based companies. So excited to be here.
Great, thanks so much. So we probably have about 3 minutes for Q&A. Any questions?
Hi.
I guess oh, go ahead. I heard a voice. Was that Susan? Go ahead,
It's
Susan.
the Tom and Susan show with a few Joes thrown in. I am curious about how is this problem currently being solved right now? Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, it's pretty convoluted. So essentially what these L&D departments do is they'll go on Google, they'll research a competency framework. And we can even start from the top. Management hears about the benefits of career pathing and then goes to L&D or HR and says, hey, let's have this implemented, with no concept of what's actually involved, how long it takes. Those people end up doing some research online. They'll find a competency framework like Sophia 8 or some other one. They'll build a competency catalog for their whole organization. They'll then try and hang those competencies on roles and job families. They'll then try and take that data and build new job profiles, which are essentially all this data that would be stuck on a job description. And then they'll try and actually build new job descriptions and then roll that out to the entire team, and then take all of the L&D investment that they're making and try and tie it to everything. The whole system is super brittle. It's super manual. People just use CSV and PowerPoint. And that's what we found speaking to companies as small as 120 employees up to companies as large as the VA.
Great, thanks. Miles.
Thanks for the presentation. I like this idea. I was the senior director for strategy at a pretty big organization in international development. So we had employees in 80 countries, and we tried to tackle this exact problem. I brought it to the president. We had a problem with retention, junior level employees feeling frustrated, wanted to advance, didn't know how to advance their career. The HR department took it on themselves in kind of a stovepipe without consulting anyone else, and tried to build an architecture that took them forever, never really got done, never really got rolled out. But one of the things they came back with was, it depends. It's also context specific. And every manager is going to look at the position a little bit differently depending on the size of the team and the needs of the team. And I wonder the kind of results you're getting in your pilot with the AI assisted pathfinding for careers. Are they doing better than what HR managers and hiring managers would have been doing in terms of providing advice? Or is it just that you're taking an inefficient system and making it more efficient, but the results, maybe are the same in terms of the qualitative experience for the user?
Yeah, that's a great question and really well contextualized. I think it's two parts to that. So the first part is the problem that you first identified, which is that HR kind of does this work in a vacuum, and then each manager sort of has a different interpretation. In our product, HR can share career architecture for a team with a manager, and they're guided through refining that architecture specific to their team, so that by the time an employee is actually in the environment, it's sort of well defined. And that's been a huge value prop for our solution set in terms of the software. In terms of the AI facilitation and seeing better results, we're not far enough along to really say definitively that it's there. But yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks. And Kayvon, if you want to pop your contact in the chat as well, in case folks have follow-up questions, that would be great.
Sure.
Joe, you're up for a MVF presentation.
All right. Thanks, Tom. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to make my screen big. All right. Nice to see so many familiar faces. Many of you know the Maine Venture Fund story. Some of you may not. So I'm going to run through this pretty quickly, and certainly we have a little bit of time for questions at the end. So Maine Venture Fund, we sometimes refer to ourselves as Maine's Venture Capital Fund because we're a state-sponsored fund that's investing in dynamic businesses here that have the potential for not only significant growth in the state, but impact as well. And I'll talk about how we think about impact. And all of you know MTI. We think of ourselves very much as a sister organization to MTI along the spectrum of development. You have early stage R&D and kind of getting off of the ground with oftentimes MTI grants and loans. And then as the company gets to growth phase, typically we're coming in there with a different type of financing called venture capital. So what is venture capital, which sometimes can be considered or interchanged with the term equity capital? It's effectively investing in early stage companies in exchange for part ownership. Venture capital, usually by definition, is minority stake ownership. So we're really buying into the current management team and putting faith in them to lead the company to the next phase, but also as part owners, really coming in hands-on and helping at the strategic level, usually the board level, to help guide decision making. So the objective at the end of the day for equity investors is, okay, we're in the boat with you. We're going to try to help grow the value of this company as quickly and as greatly as possible. And then at some point have what is considered an exit event, usually an acquisition or the company is going public, where early investors are paid back with a return, and then the new acquirer or the new money coming into the company takes the company to the next level. And it's a sort of a high risk, high return. So if the company fails, then we as investors get nothing, and usually the founders as well. So it's a big ambitious type of play. And so there's no debt payments like you would have if you were taking on debt, but you get that operational support that I mentioned earlier in the form of governance. Typically there are larger sums available, and there's some drawbacks as well. And I listed governance here as well, which for some companies, they don't want to have others in the boat with them helping to make decisions. And it's not for everyone. There's sort of a financing cycle that different venture capital types of funds will find themselves focusing on. Maine Venture Fund tends to be kind of at the earlier stage. We ourselves, as I mentioned, are investing public funds. We have a board that's appointed by the governor. The board hires the management team, which is myself and my two able colleagues, and then investment decisions are made by the board. And so we're looking for companies that are based here. And we exist because way back when we were created 26 years ago, the legislature said, this seems like a good use of funds. Usually when equity capital is deployed into those ambitious companies, dollar for dollar, the returns are greater than investment elsewhere. And so this is just showing that, venture capital investment as a share of GDP is small, but in terms of what those companies do with the dollars, they perform well. And Maine doesn't have a whole lot of venture capital outside of Maine Venture Fund, and so hence the need for a state-sponsored fund. So we think about impact in these ways, think about sort of how many jobs are created, what's the impact in communities, diversity in the company, what's the impact on environment. And so we have some metrics that we track in fiscal year 2023, our 45 portfolio companies generated a fair amount of revenue and obviously supporting a number of jobs. And then there are a number of companies, most of our companies are located in CDFI identified zones, underserved communities. And we have some good diversity metrics and always looking to improve on those. I can't see the timer. Oh, I guess I can. I got 30 seconds left. So, all right, coming into the final stretch here. So we have a number of companies. This is kind of an eye chart, but you can see, maybe recognize a number of these, all different industries. You can see the Roux healthcare companies there in the upper right. And we've also had a bunch of successful exits in the way that I described earlier. So the fund, when we do receive a return, just gets recycled, and we're an evergreen structure. So hopefully we'll be operating in perpetuity. And we exist, as I mentioned earlier, alongside many others in the state, and not just those on the previous slide, but this is sort of our ecosystem slide that we share often in presentations like this, and too many to read, but many of you are in these organizations, and certainly the message to an entrepreneur like the folks that spoke earlier, is that Maine has a lot to offer depending on what you're looking for. So that's the wrap.
Great. Thanks so much, Joe. I saw you put your email on the slide. If you also want to post into the chat, that would be great. Any questions for Joe? And maybe while folks are thinking, I'll kick us off. Are there any recent investments that MVF has made that you're particularly excited about?
Yes. Last year we had the benefit of leveraging some federal funds so we could make more investments than we typically would otherwise. One of the, I guess a couple of companies to highlight. One of the larger investments that we made last year was a company called Timber HP, which is, many of you have heard about what Josh is doing up there in Madison. And so, we hope that they'll, be able to ramp successfully, but that's wood fiber insulation. So it's a whole new technology for North American market. And then we have, everything from manufacturing to medical devices. MedRhythms here in Portland, which was another investment last year, is building a device, sensor on a shoe connected to an earpiece that plays music for people who are learning to walk again after traumatic brain injury or disease or aging. And it turns out that walking faster correlates with better health outcomes. So really cool to see that developed, and that came out of UMaine. So a lot of Maine ties.
Cool.
Tom, it's Susan. I'll jump in just to say for everyone on the call, what's really terrific is that Joe sits in with Maine Angels, MTI is there, CI Ventures, just to give everyone a sense that we're all sitting at the same table looking at a lot of these companies. And Joe, the question I'd throw out for you is there any seasonality for what happens, or are you consistent in your flow and your decision making over the calendar year? Any deadlines or anything anyone should keep in mind?
Thanks for asking, Susan. Short answer is no. We do have a business plan competition that's all ages. That's once a year, and the application period is in September and the event is in October. So that's something to highlight. But otherwise, in terms of our core mission of investments, we take comers at all times, and there is ups and downs, ebbs and flows, but those tend to correlate more with just macro trends rather than any type of seasonality related to the calendar.
Great. Well, we are. Oh, okay, Miles. You can go, but just quick for both the question and the answer, please.
Sure. really interesting, Joe. I do some advocacy work at the state level, and I've seen the legislature argue over like a $5,000 allocation of funds. How does this program do politically? I would imagine it's quite popular, especially if you are able to be evergreen and not asking them for more money consistently.
Yeah, and we actually have grown through returns, but also additional appropriations over the years. And so there have been times when we've gone back to the legislature and made the case for more capital, and that's come through some bond appropriations, where we've sort of pointed out our impact, and we tend to be a pretty nonpartisan, organization and cause. And then of course we're able to attract federal dollars as well. So it's been pretty positive. On the other hand, it's always educational, working with legislators who may not understand venture capital deeply, and so it's a little bit of like a much deeper than what I went into today of just who we are and what we do, and a lot of legislators don't know about us, and so that's a constant effort of ours too, is to sort of get the word out among that constituent.
And so much turnover, like they're all new every couple of years. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Joe. So we are more or less at time. I did want to just create a space in case anybody had any announcements that they wanted to share that maybe they already put in the notes, but they wanted to share with the team as well. And you can just raise your hand if so. Okay, well, it looks, I don't see any. So thank you, everyone. I think we're meeting again on the third Thursday of February, which I believe is the 15th. We're already full on speakers for February, but definitely looking for speakers for March and April. So if anybody knows any startups or organizations that might be interested in presenting, please send them my way. And thank you so much,
Hey,
especially to all
Tom?
the speakers. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the hand raising button fast enough.
Oh, no worries.
And so I just wanted to mention that so this is Jen Sporzinski, sorry, from CEI. And we are currently working on rolling out a host of entrepreneurship programs. Some are repeats, so they shouldn't be new to you all, like a Tastemakers and the Child Care Business Lab, but we are creating a new one for weatherization businesses. So I just wanted to mention that here, and more info will come when we've written it on our website. So I just wanted, that's going to launch this spring, winter, I guess we'd call it. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks so much, Jennifer. Welcome, Eric. Eric, I should mention, because I don't think you were on the call at the beginning, I've already pitched clean tech. I don't know if that was part of your announcement, but go ahead.
Thank you for pitching that. Like Jennifer, I was also slow in figuring out which button I needed to click for raising my hand. I just wanted to say our legislative breakfast in Augusta is on February 1st. And we have the commissioner for the Department of Environmental Protection, plus the head of the Public Utilities Commission, and 4 senior folks in the legislature on the Utilities and Energy Committee and the Environment Committee. So if anybody would like to go up to Augusta on February 1st, we'd love to see you.
Great, thanks so much, Eric. And Eric and Jennifer, if you guys haven't already, please feel free to post your announcements in the notes document as well, because I'll send that out after the meeting.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. It was great seeing you all today, and looking forward to seeing you all in February. And I'll send around the follow-up notes and the presentations for folks. Take care.
Thanks, Tom.